Welcome to another edition of the UNCAGED podcast. I'm Dan Hawk alongside my co-host, Executive Director of Athletics, Mr. Dustin Smith. Dustin, I know wrestling is in the books, and we're going to be joined by head coach Rodney Jones in a little bit, but we had a little bit of excitement in the new event center coming into town. Just seeing this kind of come into fruition finally, you got to be impressed being the athletic director here.
Yeah, I'm wowed by that thing every time I walk in there. And I'm lucky enough, I'm officed right next to that building. But I haven't known a day on this campus where we haven't had construction going on over there.
Or hearing it every day.
Right. Yeah. It's been a process, and it's been, but great things don't just happen overnight. And that's a true statement, obviously. And that event center is going to blow a lot of people's minds. And being able to know that we're that close and that we're almost to that finish line, but then seeing our wrestling team be able to enjoy that place and just seeing some of their faces when they walk into that place, it's pretty special to be able to see just how wowed they are as well. And then when our general public and our student body gets to see that place and know that that's where we're going to compete, that's where we're going to be able to wrestle and play volleyball, and our cheerleaders are going to be over there. But not just that, it's more than that. It's going to help the campus. It's going to help our community. It's going to be I say it all the time. It's a Taj Mahal. I mean, it is a really impressive facility, and knowing we're that close to it being done is really exciting.
You have any thoughts on what you would like to see in there? You know, like some surprises that might be in store. Because like you could do concerts, you could do obviously clinics, and we'll get to the Georgia national team. But I mean, there's so many opportunities that you could put in that facility.
Yeah, from a space standpoint, it's not limited to just volleyball and wrestling and cheer. Right. Obviously, there'll be some other things that we want to showcase that place. We're not building it just to keep it under wraps and let our teams practice in there. I mean, we want to showcase that, and whether that be collegiate contests that we may be able to host. I'm working on some things that I can't release at this time, but we're working on some possibilities of having opportunities to showcase that, not just for our teams and for our competitions, but state competitions, and then hopefully some collegiate level stuff to be able to really showcase that space. Because I'm telling you, when people walk into that place, they're just going to be like, wow, this is really phenomenal. It's in a high school in Oklahoma, and we'll make no apologies for that. We want it to be special, and we want it to be used, and we're going to use that to the best of our ability.
Now, obviously, this past week, we had a very special guest coming into town with the Georgia wrestling national team. Tell me about how all this got worked together, because I know Joshua Farquhar, a former Broken Arrow Tiger, kind of helped put this on the map by wrestling over in the country of Georgia. But it's more than just him. It's the wrestling community as a whole putting this together. I mean, walk me through it.
Well, and if we don't have Rod Jones saying, yes, I want to do that, then that doesn't happen because he's got to serve as a host for a week. And there were language barriers. There were opportunities where they spoke limited English, and being able to communicate. And when you get on the wrestling mat, you don't have to worry about English or French or whatever. I mean, it's the sport of wrestling.
Two individuals on the mat, yeah.
They do different things a little bit different than us, and they train a little bit different than us. But they were able to be here because of the efforts of our wrestling community and Coach Jones. If he doesn't host them, and Farquhar doesn't make that connection, if he doesn't go over there and spend time in Georgia and build that bridge for us to be able to host them here, then none of this takes place. And it takes a lot of people to do that. I mentioned Coach Jones, I mentioned our wrestling community, but our school board had to be behind that. Our administration had to be behind that for that to happen. Mike Leach had to be able to say, yes, this is doable for us to be able to host that in the new facility. So there were a lot of pieces that made that thing happen, but it doesn't go if Coach Jones doesn't give it the okay.
Now, going beyond the wrestling facility and the Georgia national team, our season obviously is concluded. It's been a little bit, but just your thoughts on this year for both the boys and the girls for how they performed this year for wrestling.
Phenomenal dual records. I mean, both of them, boys and girls, wrestled really well. Then the regionals, our girls won the regional. Our boys were runner-up, and they were 4 points away from tying that thing and 5 points away from winning the regional here. And then they both go to the state tournament and both end up fourth. And I know Coach Lyles would tell you that's not what she expected.
Sure.
She wanted us to be standing on top of that podium. She wanted us to bring home a state title. And you want coaches that want that. Coach Jones wanted that as well. You want coaches that want to win, and you want to win that last match. You want to win that last trophy. You want to be able to, and they had phenomenal years throughout, whether they won tournaments or invitationals they were invited to. how the boys competed at dual state. Girls don't have dual state at this point, but phenomenal dual records. Individuals that had phenomenal records throughout the year, and just really proud of how they wrestled, how they represented BA, and how I told Coach Lyles a couple times. I watched our dual matches and the consistency in which our girls sprawl and how they push the head down, and that's coached. That's not something that they just do by happenstance. And to see that consistently, girl after girl after girl, doing that same defensive move, knows that our coaches are teaching them the fundamentals. It shows that they're teaching them the fundamentals, and then it shows that they're catching on to those fundamentals and using them in real life. So I was extremely impressed with how our girls wrestled all year, how our boys wrestled all year, and how they finished the year.
I know expectations are always going to be high, but it seems like it's going to be elevated even more with this new facility. But also in perspective of that's how we always what we want to put forth on the mat.
Yeah, and we don't want to just say it's all about the facility. We want our kids, anybody that wears that BA logo, I want them to be representing BA in a phenomenal manner. The facility obviously will be no excuse. You can't just say, well, we're practicing in this terrible dungeon of a place. I mean, it's phenomenal what they're going to be able to practice in and be competing in. But at the end of the day, it's about kids, and it's about our coaches coaching those kids and them having the reactions to their experience here being phenomenal. And that's what I want. It's not going to be for a lack of facilities. It's not going to be a lack of wow factor. Their experience is going to be great, and it's going to be what they make of it, obviously. But I'm excited to see just the doors that new facility is going to open. But at the end of the day, we got kids that are competing wearing that BA logo, and I want them to compete and do that well.
Well, Coach Jones will join us in just a little bit as we'll continue on with the UNCAGED podcast. Stay with us.
Your side hustle keeps you moving. We'll help you get where you really want to go. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
Tulsa Bone and Joint, Northeast Oklahoma's sports medicine experts. We are pleased to help you and the athletes in your life with a number of surgical and non-surgical options. Tulsa Bone and Joint is proud to serve as team orthopedist for local high schools such as Broken Arrow, Owasso, Sapulpa, Cascia Hall, and Bishop Kelly. We're also proud to be team orthopedist for FC Tulsa. Tulsa Bone and Joint, moving life forward.
And welcome back to the UNCAGED podcast. We're now joined by head wrestling coach Rod Jones and executive director of athletics, Mr. Dustin Smith, my co-host. You've been a little busy as of late over in the new facility, the old facility. What do you got going on tap right now, Rod?
Spring break really wasn't a break at all. Had a lot of stuff going on, which is good. I enjoyed it. Had a group of Eastern European Georgian wrestlers come to town over spring break, and it was an awesome experience. A lot of work, not just by myself, but a lot of work with the wrestling community and wrestling parents and families. A bunch of people stepping up to make sure that this group of Georgian athletes had a good time and enjoyed their stay in Oklahoma. It ended with the trip to Stillwater and lunch at Eskimo Joe's, and I think they got to look around Oklahoma State University a little bit. So got them to the airport on Wednesday morning. They flew out of Dallas to upstate New York, which is where they're going to which was their original destination when they came over here. They have a competition going on in New York, and that's this weekend, and I'm sure that they're looking forward. They've been here for a long time, looking forward to getting home.
Well, in that vein, Coach, this isn't something that happens every year.
No.
And that our kids don't get that experience of being with a national team from another country coming over here and being part of. And not only did they get to do that, but they got to do so in the new facility, and they kind of got to experience what the new facility looked like. And some of our wrestlers obviously got a sneak peek at what that place is and how incredible that place is going to be for our wrestling program. But just the overall experience for our kids to be able to meet people of that stature, if you will, and to not only meet them, but also wrestle with them or take some lessons from them on the wrestling side of things. How big was that for you and your program?
Timing is everything, and it was perfect timing with the situation with the new event center being to the spot, to the place, in as far as completion goes, and having the ability to access the wrestling room, like I said, kind of like a sneak peek for sure. And then having this group of athletes coming to the United States for the tournament that they're attending at the same time, it worked out perfectly. It was awesome to have those guys here. And the experience for our athletes, and not just Broken Arrow athletes and Broken Arrow wrestlers, we had area local athletes and wrestlers that came over and were able to take advantage of the opportunity to train with these guys. And the biggest thing is, and you guys know this, is you can talk about how fast somebody is. You can talk about how strong somebody is, or you can talk about, how technique is a huge factor in what we do. But until you actually put your hands on somebody and you grab a hold of them and you feel that speed, or you feel that strength, or you feel that position, there's no substitute for hands-on experience. So for our guys to get to put their hands on and to roll around and spar and wrestle and do what we do and have fun with it, with these athletes, I mean, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and is extremely beneficial for everybody that was involved.
Well, let's talk about our season and how it ended.
Right.
We got to host regionals here and had a great showing at regionals here. And,
Good crowd too, by the way.
Really good crowd. Really good wrestling that took place. Really competitive. A lot of mats, a lot of action going on throughout that regional and 2 days of hosting that. And then let's talk about that first, and then talk about the state tournament and what happened when we went down there.
Well, yes, hosted the regional tournament. Had a really good performance at the regional tournament. It was exciting, with the understanding that the new event center is well under construction and almost, close to being completed. And, Tiger Fieldhouse has been good to Broken Arrow Wrestling over the years. And honestly, I love Tiger Fieldhouse, but we had an opportunity at the regional tournament to send Tiger Fieldhouse out with the championship, and our guys competed at a very high level. Was very pleased, very happy with the overall team performance, and we had a chance to send Tiger Fieldhouse out on top with the wrestling program, but it came down to the very last match at heavyweight. We had a guy participating for a medal, and the winning team had a heavyweight wrestler, and they got the last win. So we missed out on winning the regional championship, but we had a very good, strong performance. And this is coming a week after we made it to the semifinals of the dual state tournament. We qualified all 14 wrestlers for the state tournament, which is
no easy task, by the way.
There's been 2 teams that have done it. We have done it. We've done it 3 times out of the last 5 years. Have qualified 14 wrestlers for the state tournament, which is a big deal, trying to get everybody into the tournament. And we had a good performance at the state tournament. Now, expectations around here are always to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so to take that in and understand that, and understand that that's how we think, we ended up finishing 4th at the state tournament this year. We had 7 state placers. 2 guys made the finals. We had 2 runner-ups. And with the group that we have, or the group that we had, and knowing what everybody else in the state of Oklahoma had, finished, like I said, semifinals at dual state. So that puts you in the top 4 at dual state. And we finished 4th at the state tournament. And reality is reality. At the end of the day, we were probably the 4th best team in the state of 6A state of Oklahoma this year. But looking forward to the future, always planning for the future, always planning a couple years ahead and looking down the road. We had a good group of seniors. I think we graduated 5 guys out of the 14 that qualified for the state tournament, and that's normal. We always have a good mixture, a good balance of seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. And with what we feel like we have returning from this year's squad moving into next year, we're optimistic and excited about the future and putting ourselves back right in the middle of the group, competing for a 6A state championship next year.
Well, Edmond North's not going to be as loaded as they were this year, and they just kind of ran away with the state title in 6A this year, but extremely loaded senior class for them. And, we've talked before about building a program and what that really looks like to where you compete year in and year out. And I'm not saying that Edmond North's going to fall off the map and not be competitive whatsoever. However, this year was the year for them to really be the pace setter for 6A, and they did that at the state tournament. But you didn't have a bad showing at the state tournament.
No,
and people that know wrestling understand that, yes, you try to get an individual state championship, but the individual's points count towards the team total. Yes. And that's where you're trying to add team total and trying to make sure, every win's important.
Absolutely.
And every match is important.
Right.
No matter the weight class, every match is important. And so getting those kids with those other 9 that didn't graduate, that got the experience to wrestle in the state tournament and what that really looks like, it's got to bode well for you moving forward.
Absolutely. The landscape of 6A Oklahoma wrestling, and obviously, shout out to Edmond North. They had an outstanding team this year, and in 2021 we set the state record, just to give you some context, of the amount of points scored at 163 points. That was the most points ever scored in the 6A state wrestling tournament. Edmond North scored 260 points this past year. And so
it's just unreal if you think about it.
Absolutely unreal. And they've been working hard for a long time, and then obviously they had a good team. And wrestling's not real hard to kind of look in the future and predict, what next year and the following. You just go by class, you go by returning points from the state tournament, and they'll still have a very solid team next year. They return some solid wrestlers. There's a couple other schools that are going to return a good amount of points from this year's state tournament. But when we look at who we return and the amount of points we return, you're talking about state qualifiers, guys that were in the state tournament and state placers and state finalists and things like that. We're feeling very confident and optimistic about where we put ourselves in that mix or in that group going into next year. It's consistency. Consistency wins. 21 state championships since 1998. There's no other program in the state of Oklahoma that has accomplished that many state titles in the last 2 decades. And we're not. We did not finish, where we want to finish and where we expect to finish, but we're working, and we're staying consistent. And I think consistency ultimately will pay off, next year in the years to come. The guys are doing the right things.
Well, let's talk about. We touched on the event center, and I know you got to get
your first taste.
Got to taste what that thing is, and just for our listeners that may not be aware of that facility just yet, from a wrestling coach's perspective, that's the Taj Mahal of wrestling, probably in the country, not just in the state of Oklahoma, but. Just talk about how impressive that facility is and how beneficial that's going to be for your wrestling program.
Well, just to mention, and people around the state are aware of, what we're trying to do, and it's just an example of Broken Arrow as a whole, as far as always striving for excellence and always trying to do things first class. But you can talk to different people around the state of Oklahoma, and you can tell them that we're going to have a 16 mat wrestling training space, and I don't know if that registers every time you tell someone that, or they just kind of blow that off. But to experience what we got to experience for the last several days, with our guest from Georgia in town, which 1/3 of the facility, all right, which is 6
40 by 40 mats,
full size 40 by 40 wrestling mats in a space that is, for a wrestling coach and for somebody that's been wrestling his entire life. I mean, it's just a beautiful space. But
you get emotional about it?
I could get emotional about it if I allowed myself to get emotional about it. But to think that that's just 1/3.
I know.
Right.
And when it comes to fully being completed and to be completely done, and the mats are all set up and the mats are all clean, which you've got to clean those, it's truly going to be. And I think I've said this to a couple of different people, but if somebody else has a wrestling training space, 16 mats, as many as 16 mats, I like to see it. You know, and good for them. You know, Not claiming that it's the world's largest wrestling training facility, but I might be claiming that it's the world's largest training facility until we get proven wrong.
Yeah, it's 103 yards from wall to wall.
It's 100. So, you're talking about some killer sprint.
Yeah, there's some conditioning
room
that's going to take place that our wrestlers may not appreciate how big that is at that point. But
100%.
Our wrestling coaches will be like, exactly what we need.
So
well, Ron,
extremely grateful for the space and in the time that we just kind of got to experience it a little bit. Looking forward to getting back into it, but there was a little bit of stress that went along with it, as far as like you don't want to scratch up the walls or scratch up the mats or things like that.
And the wow factor happens every time I walk in there.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
you're just overwhelmed by how big that is. And you mentioned something earlier, and I'd be remiss not to thank the wrestling community that really wrapped its arms around this process. When we had dual meets, when we had regionals, when we had the Georgians here, they were quick to jump in and say, hey, how can we help and what can we do? And I just want to thank the wrestling community that has supported us throughout the year and the years in the past. And their support is important, and it makes our wrestling program and our expectations behind. We don't make apologies for that. That's the expectation. That's the standard. And it is what it is for us. But I want to thank those people, and there's too many to name, but those people who have jumped in and got their arms around our wrestling program and really want the best for BA. And that's a direct result of their support and their belief in what we have.
For sure. You can't question the support. I mean, if you wanted to question the support, then you can come over and check out the new facility, the event center, when it gets here. And it's not just, that thing's not just going to benefit wrestling. It's going to benefit so many different organizations and groups and students and things in Broken Arrow. It's just going to be a very special place once it gets, when it's completed and people are allowed in there and to start using it, and they're going to see how great it is.
Well, Coach Jones, we appreciate you stopping on the Uncaged podcast. For Dustin Smith and myself, that will do it for this edition of the Uncaged podcast. Stay with us. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and all other social media outlets. Until next time, go Tigers.